Yeah, legacy code is one of those things where a lot of people kind of like regret having to work with it. But I've always found that it makes developers stronger developers. And the reason why is because, yeah, there's a certain amount of skill in going and creating something new. And that's really kind of powerful. You get to basically apply all of what you think is your creativity to going and doing something like that. But creativity really grows, when you have constraints. And legacy code brings a lot of constraints. And you basically have lots of challenging problems to solve. So yeah, to me, it's almost like legacy code is like a skills acquisition device in a way. And if you basically find yourself up for the challenge, you can do a lot of incredible work in the context of legacy code. See, people often ask, what are the skills that are needed for working legacy code? A couple of them are really kind of key. One is the ability to understand code, to read code well. And that comes through a lot of just doing it, right? You have to basically sort of act like a detective, understand how the code got to where it has gotten. That can be rather difficult. But beyond that, there's also the interpersonal skill of finding people to be able to explain to you things that have gone on within the code base. So I'd imagine the skill set could probably be best compared to like being an archaeologist in a way. It's like you have to basically, from the artifacts, basically develop a model of like, how did we get here? And use that to basically inform your decision making going forward. Yeah, so my talk is about socio-technical practice as craft. And that's a very strange title, I think, right now, because not many people are talking about this sort of thing. But one of the things I've kind of noticed is that the technology and the people basically interact in very interesting ways when we're developing things. And many of the decisions that we make about how we're going to structure our teams and our process and even our architecture really depend upon the interaction of these realms, the technology and the people. So I wouldn't really necessarily say that one is more important than the other, the people or the technology, but seeing these things as an integrated system is something that we need to go and basically do a lot more of. And my talk is really all about modeling systems, socio-technical systems, seeing the forces between the artifacts and the people, the code that we're working on, the tools, the organization, and trying to go and use that so that we can essentially design contextually appropriate process and contextually appropriate team structure and architecture. Yeah, people often wonder, what has the impact been with the software craftsmanship movement? And I don't know, in terms of like global impact, it's kind of hard for me to go and sort of like see where it is right now. I think it's still yet to come in a way. This community is one of the few ones that I basically see that really address technology and concerns around technology in the day-to-day operation and development of it. It's a bit off to the side of the agile software development community, and I kind of hope in some way that they kind of like merge back together again in a way. Yeah, I think this is really a meeting place for people that basically build systems. And I think that it's just going to kind of like grow in importance over time. The recognition of these conversations need to be had. The idea behind the talk that I'm giving about socio-technical practice really comes from just basically noticing the absence of something, right? I think that if you've been in software development for a long period of time, you start to basically see software development very differently. You're very aware of, say, Conway's Law, for instance, and you have decent intuition about how to organize teams and how to organize architecture and stuff along these lines and how they interact. But the fact is, I don't think that we ever really talk about that directly all that much, or rather it's something that people would become initiated in, through their experience and developing intuition about it. I think we can be far more explicit about these things. And so I want to go and basically start to build up that conversation. And that's really what my talk is about. Yeah, from my socio-technical practice session, the thing I really kind of hope that people take away is a different way of seeing things, a different way of going and seeing the interactions between architecture, teams, and the code that we produce. And it's funny, I tend not to be the person who says, do this, this is a practice, this is a practice. I tend to believe that when we see things differently, just the choices that we have become more apparent to us. And then we develop practice around that stuff. So this is kind of like a talk which is really more about seeing things in a different way so that you're able to make better decisions. Yeah, this conference is one that I love. I've gone a couple of times. And I think the main thing for me is just basically being able to have conversations with people across many different organizations. They're confronting some of the same architectural and practice challenges that you would have as a developer. Some people might say, hey, that's a bit developer-centric in a way, but these conversations need to happen someplace, and this has been a very valuable, place for them to occur.